All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Sowers. I am the Director of Technology for DoSpace. And with the given situation in the world going on, our building is closed, but we are providing as much of our digital services digitally as possible. Lots of webinars. We have tech chat help. If you go to our website and look for the We Are Here icon, you can get some help from our wonderful staff. And this is Google Search Secrets Part 2. If you didn't watch Part 1, that's okay. You don't have to have watched Part 1. Part 2 is just more things that you can do with Google. And today I am going to be looking at least Google Scholar and Google Books, and time allowing, I will show you a couple other really cool things. And if I don't get to them, I will most likely be doing a Part 3. Part 1 is on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/DoSpaceOmaha. You can find that there, along with well over 100 other webinars we've done in the last 6-8 weeks. And this one is also being recorded and will be posted on YouTube usually within about 24 hours. So if there's anything you missed and you want to go back to check on, you can do that. We do have a chat feature available here on Zoom. You can choose all panelists and then just I will see it, or you can choose all panelists and attendees and then everybody participating will see your question, and I will do my best to moderate those and answer those questions as we are going through. Each of these things that I'm going to be covering in Google today could be their own webinar. So I am really just going to be kind of scratching the surface, showing you the highlights of the features you may use. I'll be doing a bunch of sample searches. These searches in and of themselves may not be relevant to the topics that you're interested in, but at least give you an idea of how this service works. And so where I'm going to start here today is with Google Scholar, which can be found at scholar.google.com. This is a subset of Google, but in this case, instead of searching the web and the internet as a whole, it is purely searching for scholarly content. So published journals and articles that have in most cases been vetted, are citing each other. If you're definitely in college or you're a more serious researcher, this is a site that you want to pay attention to. In fact, we have another DoSpace staff member kind of monitoring the call. Connor, he's in college right now, and I was asking him if he's been using Google Scholar, and he says yes. Also, if you are somebody who publishes scholarly work or book works, you can actually use this to also see if people are citing you. So this is not necessarily something to be used by the everyday searcher. It is kind of next level results, and there's three major areas to it. There's articles and there's case law. I will show you case law just a little bit, but I am not a lawyer. I haven't done any legal research since undergrad, almost 30 years ago. So I won't touch upon that too much. And patents, which I've got a couple fun examples for you here. So just right off the top, I'm going to just do a simple search here, and I'm going to search for the digital divide. The digital divide is kind of that concept of not everybody has access to the internet and digital resources, which is really, really kind of making, rearing its ugly head in the situation we find ourselves in today. Excuse me. So I've done this search, and it's a pretty broad topic. I've got 2.6 million results. But what you will notice is in most cases, these are not just random websites mentioning the concept of the digital divide. These are actually scholarly published articles that you can find in most cases online for free, but not always. We'll kind of get into that in a little bit. So our search results here are right down the middle, and the first one is Digital Divide Research, Achievements and Shortcomings. You'll see we have the author, we have the publication that it appears in, when it was published, and the domain of the website where you can find it. And also with a brief little abstract here for that particular article. I can favorite it, or I can save it to my account. You'll notice real quick over on the right here, I am currently logged into my Gmail account, and we'll come back to why that's important in a few moments. I can pull up a citation for this. So real quick here, I'm going to kind of save it, and then I'm going to pull up a citation. And so if you're doing research and you're like, hey, this is a really great article, I want to cite this in my paper, it will give you an automatic citation that you can copy and paste in the top styles that you might be using. Chances are you're probably using MLA or APA if you're in college today. This also allows you to link to some other citation software services that are available out and about. So if you're saving all your citations in EndNote, you can go ahead and click that and connect to your account. It also here has cited by, related articles, and versions. So without going into too much detail about citation and cross-referencing, we can see here that this paper has been cited by 1,224 other papers in Google's database. And generally, what you can say is the more people that are citing your work, the better the work is. So I'm not saying that, like, if we go down here, Africa and the Digital Divide cited by 441, I'm not saying that's a lesser article. It's probably, in this case, a lot more specific to Africa as opposed to this general article about digital divide research. If you want to see what papers are citing this paper, you just go ahead and click on that cited by, and then you can literally get that list of 1,224 results. So you can see all the cross references between all of these different researches or research articles. You can then, you'll see this little checkbox here, search within citing articles, so that now if you want to search just within these 1,200 articles, you can check that box and re-perform your search. I'm going to go ahead and back up here. Related articles. So these are now going to be other articles on the same topic, but not necessarily citing or cited by this particular article. And again, now it pulls us up to 101 results. So you can see as we click through these, we start narrowing our search results as we go through them. All right. The one thing I haven't shown you yet is what happens if I actually click on the search result itself. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And if the article is available, it will take you directly to it. So in this case, this is an article that is available free online through a service called Elsevier. The journal is Poetics, and here is a PDF version of that article. You can now save, you can print, you can read. Not all articles are going to be available. In some cases, there are going to be articles that are available only through paid services that you may have access through whatever institution you're connected to. So if it's not freely available online and you're, say, with UNO, University of Nebraska, Omaha, it might provide you, hey, it's available through this database service, UNO has that service, then here's the citation so you can go find it that way. But I will tell you, there is a lot of content available just completely for free here that you can find. And even if you can't get the full content, chances are you can get at least that citation that allows you to go search for it elsewhere. In some cases, there are multiple versions of a paper available. So for example, just sticking with this first one again, I'm going to go ahead and say all 11 versions. And so what it is there are various versions of this paper stored at different institutions or websites online. I'm not saying it's a different version of the paper's content, but a different place where you can get that particular piece of research. Okay. Over here on the left, for those of you that did watch the part one, usually in most Google search engines, there is kind of a tools bar that you can pull down. In this case, in Scholar, there's not a lot of options. So instead of bringing up a whole tools bar for you to choose from, they just kind of automatically show you what options there are on the left-hand side. In this case, we have a time frame. So if I only want to see the latest research, if I want to see only stuff published in 2020, I can click on here since 2020. It also gives me other common years. I can then also change this to a custom range. So you know what? I really want to see what was written about the digital divide in the 1990s. I can go ahead and limit that. And there we go. We still have 111,000 results. Okay. Again, I'm just going to go back to any time here to kind of reset my results here. You can sort your results by relevance and by date. The default is relevance. So what it's saying there is that it thinks this is the single most relevant article to your search. But if you'd rather say, you know what, I want everything on the digital divide, but I want the newest at the top, then there we go. I can just click sort by date, and it does give me my same results, but sorted a little different. You also notice too, it is going to pull up content in other languages, and we'll get to that in a second. So if you only speak English, chances are something in, say, Spanish is not necessarily going to help you. But remember, Google does have a translation service, so that is something you can consider. The last little section here is include patents and include citations. In this case, those are included by default. You can uncheck those as you want. And I'm going to, in just a moment, cover patents just a little differently. I'm also going to point out this little create alert down here. And alerts are some really cool things you can do. Alerts is a whole other section of Google I'll get to at the end of this presentation. But right here within Google Scholar, you can actually say, hey, you know what, this is a topic that is really important to me, and I want to be notified whenever there is a new article that's found. And I can use this create alert, and you do have to be signed into your Google account to make this work. So if you're not, it will ask you to do that. This is why I'm already signed in. And I've set up my query here for digital divide as a phrase. That's what those quotation marks are for. An email address, and then I can show 10 or 20 results at the time. And if I click create alert, what this is going to do now is every time it finds a new result, it's going to email me. Okay. And in fact, you'll see here, I actually have a couple of other alerts already set up. One is on my name, because you know what? I've written some books, I've written some articles. If somebody mentions me, I want to know about it. And I've even set up a search here for people who are citing my work. This is really cool. So, you know, I've published a few books and articles, as I mentioned, and if somebody cites one of my works, I get an email, so I know about it. And you know what, from a certain perspective, I think that's pretty darn cool. So let me go ahead and back up here a little bit. I'm going to get all the way back to my original search. Let me go ahead and click on this little hamburger menu in the upper left-hand corner here to kind of show you a few other things. Right now, I am searching in articles. I can search in case law, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am not going to get into case law. Legal research is kind of this whole topic in and of itself. But, you know, if you really wanted to, you can go ahead, and I'm now searching digital divide in legal court cases, whether that be federal or you can see here the limiters have changed just a little bit. Federal court, Nebraska courts, because it knows I'm in Nebraska. Or I can go in and I can search results for just all of these court cases, all of these court districts. And in this case, I'm just going to say, let's leave that as a default and let's not spend too much on court cases there. Okay, backing up again. Profiles. Now, profiles are something you can set up if you are an author. So I will show you my profile in a moment. But so what I've done here is I'm still doing my digital divide search, but I'm now searching for authors that list that as a topic that they do research on. So in this case, here we go. I have 3 results, and then I can go ahead and select this person here, and then I can see this person's profile. Okay. I'm going to show you my profile in just a second because I kind of have a little more detail as to how that profile works. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and pull up my profile. And you'll see here, I have been able to customize this page. If you're really interested in following me, you can follow me, although I don't publish nearly as often as I used to. And then what we've got here is these are the books and articles in the system that I have published. And then you will see here over on the right-hand side how many people or other articles have cited that work and what year it was published. Okay, there's a thing called a citation index over here, links to co-authors of mine. And then you can, you know, say, oh, look, hey, Michael wrote a book called Google Search Secrets. And so you can bring up more details about that with my co-author and when it was published and who published it and a description and the citations and different versions that are available for it online. So a profile can work in 2 ways. One, in this case, it's a profile of me. I want to keep track of who's paying attention to my work. But also, you as a searcher, you can find an author that you are interested in, and then you can follow that author so that as they provide new work, you can get alerted to the fact that they have published new content. So let me go back up a bit here. And not going to cover metrics. That gets into just a little too much detail for the time that we have now. But I will show you advanced search and settings. So advanced search allows you to kind of build a more specific search than just typing it into the field. I showed the versions of advanced search in the part 1 video that we did here. In this case, we're just kind of doing a basic search on the 2 words digital divide. If I wanted to make sure that that was a phrase, I could move that into here. I can subtract words. So for example, if I am interested in the digital divide, but I really don't want anything that mentions higher education, I can say, okay, give me articles that talk about the digital divide, but don't mention higher education. I can specify that my search is anywhere in the article or just in the title of the article. I can specify an author. I can specify the journal or the website that the article has been published on. And I can also return articles based on a date. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and clear this out for just a second. And I'm also going to show you a patent search because Google Scholar is really good on patents. And so I was trying to decide what might be a current topic of interest in a patent that people may be interested in. And so I'm going to say, you know what? There was a patent for the toilet paper roll. There was. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to limit my date here because I do happen to know that this patent was published in 1891. So I'm going to go ahead and do that search. And here we go. In this case, we have now gotten our patents. And I'm going to show you what happens when you bring it up here. It will actually show you the patent itself. It will give you a history of the patent, when it was applied for, when it was granted, when it expired if appropriate. You can link to prior art. You can look for similar patents. And actually, if you click on this here, you will actually be able to get a PDF of the patent itself. They have everything going back as far as we can think of. And just in case you're wondering if toilet paper should be gone over or under, according to the 1891 patent, you should be hanging it over. So there you go. I think you learned something. I think that solves the argument. But, you know, feel free to argue with me later if you'd like to. So backing up real quick here, I will show you one other area of Scholar before we move on, and that is settings. In this case, these are kind of things you can set to be your default interface when you're searching in Scholar. Right now, I've been doing all these sample searches kind of with all the default settings, but you can say, you know what, please don't ever include patents. We can uncheck that, or set my default search to case law. You can change the number of results per page from 10 to 20. You can say, you know what, whenever I click on a result, I want it to open in a new browser window or a new tab, because really I want to keep my list up over here. I don't want to have to keep going back and forth. And then you can also default, if you're using one of those citation services, you can choose a default to always use. We have a few other settings over on the left here. Language, defaulting is going to be to English, but you can change that to another language if you would like to. You can also limit your search results to, say, for example, only English or only German or a couple of languages as you choose. I'm going to make sure I don't save any of these changes over here. Library links. If you are associated with a institution of higher learning, there is quite possible that they can cross-reference to that library's content. And so you might need to do a little bit of investigation, maybe speak to the librarian at your institution to ask them whether or not this will work. And then you can say, hey, you know what, I want to make sure that you show me content that is available through Harvard. Your account, this is just, again, whether or not you want to have it kind of remember things related to your account. And then this little button icon is the ability to add a browser extension so that you can highlight a button, you see, hey, you know what, I see that, give me a citation for that, and save it for me to look up later. Okay. So that's kind of, like I said, a kind of high level what's available in Google Scholar. So what I'd like to do next here is go through Google Books. And so Google has a whole separate search just for book content. Not necessarily scholarly, though. This could include fiction, nonfiction, pretty much almost every book published. I'm not going to say every book, but in some cases you can actually get into the content of the book to see whether or not a topic you are looking for is mentioned. So like I did with the part 1 of this video series, I'm going to go ahead and search on Dean Koontz because he is just a topic of interest to me. I do a little research on him. And so what we're going to do is wait for my results to come up. Come on, you can do it. And we're going to get rid of this little thing on the side here because that has to do with a separate service that I use, so you will not see that. And in this case, we are in a books search. You will see here it is bringing up a list of books that have been published by Dean. If you're a fan, you should recognize some of these titles. We have some choices here that automatically show up under the tools. All books, books with only a preview available, Google eBooks if you're looking to actually purchase a copy, or free Google eBooks. Under document, you can limit your results to books, magazines, or newspapers, or all of the above. You can limit your results to a time frame. Now, I'm not sure what Dean Koontz search results I'm going to get from the 19th century, but maybe we'll take a look at that in a minute. And sort by relevance or sort by date. So you know what? I really would be interested in the newest thing that he has put together. And let me try to turn this off for now. There we go. And in this case, this is a book that is not even out yet. So you will see here, it will be published later in 2020. You get a brief description. You will get, it says here, no preview, meaning it has no content. And that, you know, kind of makes sense, is the fact that the book hasn't been published yet. You will also see foreign translations of his content and various things here. Now, what I really probably should do, though, is find some sort of book that has some content available. So I'm going to go ahead and search my name. And here we go. Here is a book I published in 2015. And it lists the title as a description. It hyperlinks the authors, so myself and my co-author. And you'll notice here it also has a preview button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the link here, and you will see that this is the results, and it automatically pops up the content of the book. I'm going to close that for just a second. Okay. So here we go. This is the book. It has 32 pages worth of a preview. It has all of the information about the book itself. Again, citation management. You can create a citation for this book if you're using this for research. You can get the table of contents. It links to a place where you can buy a copy of the book. It will potentially link to your local public library. So if you'd like to see if your library has this. Other editions, this was actually published in both paperback and hardcover, so it gives you 2 different editions available to you. Common searches and phrases, similar books. Hey, a book of mine that hasn't actually been published yet, we'll ignore that. If you look down on the right-hand side as we scroll down here, you have about the work, about the authors, and more books by that author. Now, what's really cool about Google Book Search is, depending on the book, you may actually be able to search inside the book itself. So if you're wondering, hey, you know, this guy wrote a book called Emerging Technologies. I wonder if he mentions VR in the book somewhere. Well, I can go ahead and click search inside. It will bring up what content it has available. And then I can search up here at the top, VR. And it's going to say, hey, look, on page 45, it mentions VR. On page 72, it does, but there's no preview available for this page. So it will show you what content Google has, but that may not be A, any content, B, only little snippets, kind of like what these pages are, or in some cases, whole pages, or in some cases, the whole content of the book itself. It kind of depends a lot of things on copyright issues and rights issues with the publisher and rights issues with the author. But the way I like to use Google Books is, keeping with my Dean Koontz example, I'm doing research on him. I like to see what other researchers think about his work. And so I find a book that's like a history of horror authors. Okay, I'm just making that up, but let's say it's called A History of Horror Authors in America. And I want to know, well, do they talk about Dean Koontz before I buy the book? I can try to find that book here in Google Books. I can then search inside that book for Dean Koontz and find out, hey, you know what? There's a whole chapter on Dean. Okay, I probably want to get that book from the library, or I want to go buy a copy. That's how I use Google Book Search. What you can also do then with Google Book Search is you can kind of create your own little library. So I can say, add this to my library, and it's going to pull up. And again, this is something that is going to be required for you to be signed in order for it to work. But it's like, hey, would you like to add this to your library? And I'm going to put this in a category called My Books, because these are books I published. There we go. Click done. And then you can see here, there is a whole bunch of content. You can create categories and organize things by topic and whatnot available for you there. Okay. All right. Oh, we are quickly running out of time. So I'm going to show you one more thing. I did show you alerts in Google Scholar, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to cover Google Alerts in this session, but I promise I will do a third one in a couple of weeks, and Google Alerts will be one of the topics that I cover there. I want to just show you one more little kind of neat thing available here called Google Books Ngram Viewer. So Google has the content of millions and millions and millions of books in its database. One of the things it does, and this is, I can admit, this is very niche, but I find it cool, even though I don't use it all that often. It has actually done a word count on every single word in all of those books, and then can plot the word usage over time. So if you've got a couple of topics, but you're trying to figure out which topic is kind of maybe more popular in a time period, you can use this to kind of get a rough guess. Okay, it's not perfect, but this is the example search that comes up when you bring up the Google Ngram Viewer. Albert Einstein versus Sherlock Holmes versus Frankenstein. And what it is each one of these lines is the frequency of that word or phrase as it appears in all of the books Google has access to over time. And so you can see here, well, you know what? Frankenstein goes all the way back to 1800. At least that's as far back as they go. Okay. Sherlock Holmes, well, Sherlock Holmes wasn't, created until the 1880s. So obviously that was 0. And for a while here in the 1930s, Sherlock Holmes was way more popular than Frankenstein. Okay. And then Albert Einstein is born and he starts getting mentioned. And so now he, of these 3 topics, is kind of in the middle of popularity, but Frankenstein is very, very popular. Okay. Kind of a silly example, but you know what? Let's go. I'm going to do 2 more searches just to kind of show you the example. I'm going to change this to Dracula versus Frankenstein. And look at that. Frankenstein still wins. Frankenstein is still more popular than Dracula. Okay. And then I'm just going to do one more search because everybody in the horror world loves to do this search. We're going to do Dean Koontz versus Stephen King. Anybody want to guess who's going to win? I think I know. No. What? Ngram's not found. Dean Koontz, Stephen King. Why didn't that work? Something's not working right. Let me back up one here. Dracula, Frankenstein. I swear I did this earlier. Oh, is case sensitive? Check your capitalization. There we go. Read the instructions on the screen. And let's see if this works. Yep, there we go. Now, Stephen King got mentioned back in the 1800s. We might want to add some quotation marks in this case. So again, not perfect, but there you go. Yeah, Stephen King is a bit more popular than Dean Koontz. I am not going to get in the middle of that argument. So anyways, I think this is just a little cool, neat little feature, kind of an example of what's called big data. The idea of, got all of this content. Let's kind of analyze that content. Let's throw it together and put out some charts. Okay. So, hey, that's our half hour. I didn't see any questions come through. If you've got any questions about any of the things I've covered, I can hang out for a few more minutes and do my best to answer those for you. Like I said, there is a part 1, which if you haven't watched, I might encourage you to do that, especially if you enjoyed this one. This has been part 2. I will schedule part 3. In part 3, we will talk about Google Alerts. And we'll probably also talk about Google News, which is one of the other major search types that you can do in Google that I have not yet covered. Connor, quick question. I am not looking at the Q&A section. Have any questions come through there that I might want to address?
I have a couple of people thanking you for your information and your time.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for attending. Just as a reminder, we will be doing, we have recorded this and we'll be posting this on YouTube if you'd like to go back and watch it again. We also have tech help chat that we're now offering on our website. Just go to dospace.org, look for the We Are Here icon in the lower right and click on that if you've got some basic tech questions. Our staff will be able to help you out to their best of their ability. Faye, thanks. Yeah, Google Books is cool. I really suggest you kind of start poking around in there. I've found some really neat information in there for sorts of research that I've done, and it has really helped me decide whether or not I want to buy a book, just in case that it does or does not have content that I'm looking for in it. So again, thank you, everybody. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and hope everybody has a good day and stay safe. Thanks for attending. Bye-bye.